Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Rank, where I climb the online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. In the previous episode, we featured the Salt Lake City Regionals winning team built and piloted by Chongjun Peng. It is the standard Sun team, and I called it really the best team in the format at the moment because, first of all, it is just truly dominant. It's won back-to-back regional championships in Salt Lake City and Liverpool, and it just has so many tools at its disposal. So this is the winning team from Salt Lake. Details are in the description below, including a rental and a paste if you want to try it out yourselves, courtesy of Chongjun. And thank you so much as always for watching Road to Ranked. If you enjoyed, please show your support by leaving a like in the video, and I really appreciate it. And question of the day, I'm just curious on your general thoughts about the format at the moment, especially with the recent meta progressions. For me personally, I think that there's a lot more depth than I think people really give it credit for, especially in team building. Yes, there are a lot of like Groudon Sun teams and Zacian Kyogre Rain teams out there, but I think there's a lot of flexibility and restricted duos that are viable, and I feel like we're only starting to crack that surface. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and let's get started. Alright, we've got very standard Zacian Kyogre for the first game here. This was basically the most common Kyogre Zacian team going into regionals recently. So you either see this variant or opposite variants with like Whimsicott or Tornadus and then Cortana as well. And those are really like the two most popular ways to run this composition at the moment. So normally I think against these I like just going Grimmsnarl, Gastrodon, Groudon, Zacian. You could flex bringing Charizard here as well. So I ran up against Rillaboom plus Kyogre as a lead yesterday, and that gave me some issues. So I'm intrigued by Zacian plus Grimmsnarl as a lead, and then Gastrodon plus Groudon in the back, I think. Yeah. Charizard's intriguing. I just don't love it against Zapdos specifically, and if my opponent like brings Zapdos and I lead Charizard, I don't think that's necessarily like the best trade-off for me, especially because Grimm can't paralyze it with Thunder Wave either. So I think like the goal ideally is to eliminate Rillaboom as quickly as I can, but that's easier said than done. I actually go with Zapdos plus Incin. Interesting. Okay. I mean, if you're going with this lead, it makes me think you don't have the Rillaboom in this game, which would be really interesting. So turn one here, my opponent could just click Fake Out into the Grimmsnarl as well as like an Airstream. You could Fake Out the Zacian slot, Airstream. Light Screen is obviously going to be decent for us here. I am intimidated, so I have to be careful about that. But honestly, in this position, I'm intrigued by the idea of just clicking Behemoth Blade on a Zapdos because I think it's going to Dynamax here and then just Light Screen. This is not the best lead for me to run into, honestly. And so, like, there is a fair amount that can go wrong here on turn one. Like, my opponent could just, you know, Flare Blitz Max Flare into the Zacian slot, Fake Out Max Flare the Zacian slot. But to their credit, yeah, this is a nice lead. I was trying to cover for Rillaboom plus Kyogre, which crushed me when I went up against it previously. If I led Charizard here, wouldn't have really been that good, right? It's, yeah, not amazing into either. I don't like leading Groudon here. Gastrodon lead could have worked, but it's so weak into Rillaboom, so yeah. I don't feel like I had a absolute definitive lead that would work out against everything here, but that's okay. Incin doesn't really offer anything against these two Pokemon that my opponent has right now. Okay, they're just gonna Fake Out. Okay, onto Grimm, cool. So I will get a Behemoth Blade off, but it's obviously neutral rather than at +1 attack, so we'll see how much damage this does. Into Zapdos. Ooh, not a 2-hit KO. Okay. No static at least, which is good, and then they are just going to Airstream here. Yep. Okay, Grimmsnarl hangs on, which is really, really good here. Do you have to respect, like, Speedy Incin, your Life Orb? So Light Screen here is pretty easy to go for this turn. I think I'm down to pivot out into Gastrodon here and set up a Light Screen. Yeah, that works for me. Especially because Gastro is such a nice switch in here that the only way you cover for it is if you max Airstreamed into the Zacian slot. I could see my opponent going for Airstream and Flare Blitz double up into that slot, but basically what I'm going to try to do in this game is stall out my opponent's Dynamax, ideally only lose one Pokemon throughout their 3 turns of Dynamax, and then try to play towards Dynamax AV Groudon plus Zacian in the end game. So yeah, definitely not in a bad spot after turn 1. Would have been nice to see Behemoth Blade do a little bit more to Zapdos, but you know, we were intimidated. So this is my opponent just finding a really solid lead, because I don't think I have a super good answer into it, and that lead feels pretty, at least like neutral against everything that I could have brought here. And they lightning into Zacian. Okay, beautiful. That works out even better than expected. Perfect. Yeah, they doubled up into that slot, it looks like. Oh, that's amazing. I essentially just get a free turn here, right? Like, free switch in, I waste a turn of their Dynamax. Being able to switch something in that's immune to a max move is like one of the best feelings, I feel like, in this format, just because you get so much mileage as a result. Honestly, I'm down to just protect here. Like, why risk taking an Airstream and then just reflect? Yeah, because like, I'll have accomplished my goal, right? Which was stall out my opponent's Dynamax, only lose one Pokemon at max, have both screens going into this endgame, and a Dynamax to play towards. Now, even with all of that, it's not a guaranteed win, but I definitely like my positioning going into the final, or I'd say this like mid-game to endgame. So I was expecting, like, that's the other thing, right? It's hard to feel confident Airstreaming into the Zacian slot there, but Airstream and Flare Blitz I think covers for all of my switch-ins and also covers for me staying in with Zacian. Okay, they go for another Airstream here, that's totally fine. Into the Gastro, cool, works for me. And here's the thing, we can start applying pressure with Yawn as well, because my opponent just like has not been able to really do any significant damage in this early game to me. And they throw Chop, okay, cool. So Zapdos isn't really an offensive threat to me right now. I think here I'd honestly rather like eliminate Incineroar, so I'm down to Earth Power because it should be Kyogre and Zacian in the back and Spirit Break into that slot as well. Yeah. Because Incineroar is a pretty annoying Pokemon to deal with, given that I've got Groudon plus Zacian. The other thing I want to keep in mind right now is that maybe my opponent actually has Rillaboom in the back instead of one of their restricteds. So I need to respect that option, because Rillaboom over Kyogre, for example, could actually be stronger for my opponent in this current spot. Okay, so they're just going to Heat Wave. Cool, works for me. Parting Shot here from Incin would make sense. There's Life Orb. Okay, they just go for Throat Chop. Sweet. Oh, that was a crit. Uh-oh. Okay, I don't love that. That's definitely a little bit scary. Good damage from Earth Power. You're also not Shucka Berry, so that's good to confirm. I want to double check, like, how much speed investment does their Incin need to outspeed the Zacian here? 201, so they would need 101. I don't think they're going to be running that much speed on Incin. So, like, I'm down to just go into Zacian here and then just Ice Beam Zapdos, Sacred Sword Incin. Try to pick up a double KO right now. That crit definitely makes things harder, but that's one of the downsides when, you know, you're relying on bulk from your screens. You could run into problems like that. So max speed Incin here could be kind of scary, but I'm just going to Ice Beam into Zapdos here and Sacred Sword. Because if I eliminate Incineroar... Well, first of all, if I pick up a double knockout here, then I just have late game weather control with Groudon, right? The thing to watch out for is going to be, you know, Behemoth Blade from their Zacian in the back could be still pretty scary. Yeah, and that Earth Power put the Incin in Sacred Sword KO range. You don't really have a safe switch in right now. Like Zacian, Kyogre, Rillaboom all take 40%-ish from a +1 Sacred Sword. Okay, so they are going to hard switch, which I think is the correct play. And they did bring Rillaboom. Okay, interesting. I think that's the correct option, honestly, especially if your last one is Zacian, so well done there. Okay, Zapdos protects. That's fine by me then, because I get a lot of free damage off onto their Rillaboom right now, which is really sweet. That's excellent damage, yeah. Okay, I still have screens up. Zacian, you would think is going to be my opponent's last Pokemon right now. The only awkward thing is, just like yesterday, I'm not in like a fantastic position to Dynamax. I don't really love the idea of switching Gastrodon out here. My opponent could, I guess, Fake Out plus Heat Wave into Zacian. It's actually the play I kind of expect them to make. Okay, you know what? I am down to switch out into Groudon here and just go for a Behemoth Blade onto the Rillaboom slot. I guess the only awkward thing is in switching in Groudon, I do set up the Sun. I have Light Screen, but Heat Wave actually still does hurt. So maybe here I actually just stay in. Okay. Yeah, I'm honestly down to just Ice Beam and Behemoth Blade here. Interesting. Rillaboom did not go far. Also, that Heat Wave did so much in his Zacian. That's a crit again, okay. But that means Rillaboom just went for a regular attack, meaning I get a double KO. Wow. I wonder what they were going for there. Could be Wood Hammer to predict the Groudon switch in. That would make sense to me. Okay, a bunch of scary crits, but I think we're still in pretty good shape because now I get a double KO. I could even Dynamax Gastrodon in this endgame. Nice. That's the other interesting thing. Rillaboom mind games with Gastrodon, like, it's sometimes fun to just play aggressively with the Gastrodon because most players expect you to, like, protect or switch out. So I thought there they would at least, you know, click Fake Out into the Zacian slot, but the lack of a Fake Out there was obviously good for me to see. And them setting up the grassy terrain is actually pretty significant for Gastrodon here as well because I'm getting recovery from both leftovers and grassy terrain, which is pretty sweet. So Instinct comes out, and okay, they actually brought Kyogre as their last one. I was thinking it'd be Zacian. Zacian in the back would have been a lot scarier in my opinion, but now I think we should just pretty easily win the game with Dynamax Groudon. So the one thing I want to keep in mind here is just the number of turns of screens that I have left. Yeah, we still have 4 turns of Reflect and 3 turns of Light Screen. So here, I'm honestly just going to double Protect. Yeah, there's still a little downside in doing that. I don't risk any potential critical hits. I've still got Dynamax Groudon in the back. Then the next turn, I can just double up onto Incineroar, pick up a knockout onto that, then bring out Groudon, Dynamax, Max Quake twice into Kyogre, and win the game from there. Trying to ask myself if there's like a faster line to victory here. Dynamaxing Gastrodon certainly could work as well, actually, in this position, but you know, it's like I got a fully healthy Groudon in the back, so I don't think Gastro's really at risk of getting knocked out here even before Dynamax anyway. But yeah, I think Max Gastro is another approach. Like one other angle here is Max Gastro switch Zacian out into Groudon and then just Quake into Incineroar. But I think we have a big enough lead here, especially because they brought Kyogre over Zacian, that it's going to be hard for them to really do much to win regardless. Actually, the one option I didn't talk about here, well actually Ice Beam Freeze is one of them, but the other one I was going to talk about was Calm Mind on Kyogre. I just don't think even if you have Calm Mind here, you're beating the Groudon that I have in the back, truthfully. So right now their win condition is going for that Freeze, as you see. Or a crit. Although I don't even think a crit Ice Beam necessarily gets the KO here. I could switch Zacian out, but honestly I'm down to just Earth Power Instant and Sacred Sword it here. Like, I'm just looking for the free switching into Groudon, essentially. I still have a Dynamax to play towards as well. There's Sacred Sword. Beautiful. KO's Instant. Wasn't 100% sure that would actually get the knockout, especially if they were like max HP, max defense, but with that now, there's really no way my opponent can win. So we might not even need to Dynamax to win this one, which is cool. Okay, Earth Power comes out. Not bad. Yeah. Now we can just go for consistent damage. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to Dynamax Gastro here because Max Groudon is like the correct option, so I'm just going to go for regular attacks with both. Actually, we have Yawn as well, so there's really no angle for my opponent to come back from this spot, I think. So I'm just going to Yawn plus Sacred Sword. Yawn covers for any Calm Mind shenanigans. Yeah, they ended up forfeiting. So did not need a Dynamax to win this one, which was sweet, pretty sweet. This matchup is definitely interesting where, like, you know, going up against Kyogre definitely can be scary, and because they have Rillaboom, I have to be a little bit more careful about Gastrodon, but given their lead was actually really good, but we were able to mitigate their early game by setting up screens, and so Grimmsnarl being able to take a Fake Out, or sorry, yeah, I took Fake Out into Airstream. That was really big. Getting that free damage off on his Zapdos to start out the game was good. So despite some crits on a Gastro and Groudon, we were still able to pull it off here. But glad to go up against this team because this is just one of the most common, you know, archetypes right now. And so learning how to play that matchup is important if you're trying to figure out how to use this team specifically. So yeah, let's keep things going. Next game here, and it's Ditto plus Dialga and Zacian. Okay. Normally with these comps, it's like Focus Sash on Grimmsnarl with Fake Out, Fake Tear, Scary Face / Thunder Wave, Foul Play / Spirit Break. Could be Sucker Punch. Choice Scarf Ditto, Life Orb Dialga, just max speed, max attack. Sorry, max speed, max special attack. So like Groudon on paper here should be really solid. Gastrodon just gets nuked too quickly, I think. Because there's fake out pressure from Grimm, I'm a little bit hesitant in leading my Grimmsnarl here. Honestly, Charizard and Groudon immediately is interesting to me. I actually think Grimm plus Dialga is a really big issue for me to face against right now. Okay, I'm thinking Grimm plus Groudon. Because it's like, even if you have Fake Out, you're then forced to click Fake Out onto me, and then I could just go for like a Light Screen into a Max Quake. So Grimm plus Groudon, Zacian, and then Incin. I mean, Charizard's the other option here as the max option. It's just I'm worried about Grimm Dialga Fake Tears into something. I actually think if I had more time to think through this matchup, I would play towards Charizard, but the reason is because Charizard's like decent against Dialga, very good into Zacian, Urshifu, Rillaboom, so it was probably the better call, but I was mainly trying to figure out how to win the lead matchup because I expect them to go Grimm plus Dialga here. And Charizard like makes me a little bit nervous. Yeah, they do go Grimm and Dialga. I mean, this isn't even necessarily amazing for me. I could see my opponent also just going for turn 1 Fake Out into Steel Spike on the Grimm. I mean, Charizard Groudon here, I guess, would not have been terrible, right? If I expect Fake Out plus Steel Spike, like, I'm down to switch out into Incin here. Ugh, this is so risky. Like, the thing is here, my opponent could actually just like Fake Tears into Groudon and max Hailstorm it. Or they could Fake Out plus Steel Spike Grimmsnarl. So they're just applying immense amounts of pressure to both slots right now, which makes me really nervous. Okay. I'm gonna make the read that they target the instant slot, but this is the thing, right? If I called this turn incorrectly, I'm just in bad shape. So I couldn't figure out how to just outlead Grimm plus Dialga here. Charizard may have been it. Yep, there's the Dynamax. Like, if it's Fake Tears plus Hailstorm into the Groudon, it's just a really abysmal turn 1 for me. It's Grimm, by the way, like, if Grimm doesn't have Fake Out, I don't have to worry about it nearly as much, but on these teams, I normally anticipate it having Fake Out. So we'll see what option they opted for. Okay, good. Fake Out and Steel Spike. Okay, so I get that turn correctly. It's still not even amazing for me, but at least, geez, like, that's still so much damage, right? But here's the thing. Now I get a Heavy Slam into Grimmsnarl, and this next turn I can Fake Out into the Grimmsnarl and Max Quake it as well. But you never really want to be relying on making a prediction on turn 1 of the game to get things started, right? So, like, that never feels amazing, but I'll take it. I also staggered my Dynamax by a turn, so that works out pretty well. I think here I am just going to Fake Out. You know what the problem is here, though? Like, let's say I KO Grimmsnarl, then my opponent just brings in Zacian for free, no? I have the Dynamax Groudon in this game, really, though. Okay, wait, hold on. I actually think Fake Out into Grimm and then switch out into my own Grimm is interesting. I don't know. The Dialga's just like applying so much pressure here, and it's like if I Dynamax the Groudon, I'm just at risk of Behemoth Blade after I KO something, right? It's a very fine line to maneuver around right now. We get the flinch. Yeah, and they Hailstorm. Okay, so the first 2 turns I played out exactly how I wanted it to, at least, which is good. The question is now, I'm not at risk of losing both Pokemon, so that's good, right? But what do I want to do with Grimmsnarl? Because I ideally want to set up screens here, I think. Okay, their Grim is also slower. You're slower, really? That makes me think it's Trick Iron Ball or Lagging Tail. Oh man, I actually have to really respect that then, if that's the case. I would think they would target Incin right now. You could just Spirit Break. Okay, I'm actually just going to double up onto their Grim here, because Dialga can only knock out one Pokemon right now, and I really don't want Thunder Wave shenanigans from the Grimmsnarl. Thunder Wave or Trick Iron Ball / Lagging Tail, because normally the Grimmsnarls on these teams are pretty fast, so the fact that they took hail damage last, like, makes me pretty concerned. They Quake into the Dialga slot, or sorry, into the Instant slot. I get crit there. I don't think the crit mattered, though, but all things considered, I'm actually really happy about how this early game went because I actually stalled out their Dynamax, and this puts me in a decent endgame spot. But this early game felt really volatile, honestly, because all it takes is one good prediction from my opponent's end, and I'm in so much trouble. But we actually managed to stall out their Dynamax completely, and I still haven't Dynamax yet. But you know, this is not like the ideal path to victory because, yeah, if my opponent just makes one really scary good read, right, like Fake Tears, Hailstorm, and a Groudon on turn 1, I just lose the game, and that never feels good. So they've got Ditto in the back, and they've got Zacian, presumably. Now, I don't love the idea of bringing in my Zacian and having their Ditto copy me. And I'm okay with their Ditto copying Groudon here, I think. So, time to go out into Groudon. Yep. I guess it's okay for them to copy me if it means... I'm not sure. Okay, either way, so they're going to copy Groudon. We know there's a Zacian in the back. Their Dynamax now ends on Dialga. I still have not set up screens with either Pokemon. Choice Scarf Ditto is what we should anticipate from this angle. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm down to Dynamax, and I'm actually going to max Quake and Reflect here. Because Dialga is not really that scary to me. Like, this is one of Dialga's weaknesses. I like, tested it a lot for Salt Lake City Regionals, and I think it still can be really good. Oh my gosh, it's Quick Claw. That's actually really good, like, let my opponent reveal that, because the speed this turn doesn't really matter. And now that I know you're Quick Claw, I know that you're not Scarf, meaning that my Zacian in the back will outspeed you, which is actually a really big deal here. So... normally, Quick Claw is something you see and you're like, oh my gosh, no way. But here it actually benefits me knowing now that my opponent is indeed Quick Claw. Okay. I also don't want to KO Dialga here intentionally this turn. They just Precipice Blades, okay. Because I think there's actually a decent chance they click Roar of Time here as well. Yeah, they just Ice Beam. That's fine. Okay. Now I max Quake. So now I can just go out into Zacian, right? I mean, I have a double knockout in front of me here. The only problem is that they're going to get a Precipice Blades off onto me, but I have Reflect Up, so I don't think I need to be that worried about it. Like, Sacred Sword into Dialga, KO, they Precipice Blades me, I KO your Ditto, it's a 2v1, and I can actually Steel Spike you to get the knockout and a defense boost along the way as well. And if I win the speed tie here, the game's just immediately over. I don't know if that last turn was the best play, because, like, what if I just Quake into Dialga, get the KO there? The thing is, I was assuming that they were Choice Scarf, right? And so I was like, okay, if you're Scarf, then I have to KO you before you get an attack off. I also could have contemplated setting up Light Screen instead, but I don't think that's correct. Okay, they're not going to protect or switch out. Cool. Beautiful. Sacred Sword gets the KO. And this is one of the downsides of Dialga, it's just it's so weak into Sacred Sword in the late game. And I win a speed tie here, so that should allow us to win the game. Cool. Beautiful. Yeah, the thing with this team is, like, as soon as my opponent leads Grimm plus Dialga, it's pretty clear to me they have Ditto and Zacian in the back. And so, like, one thing I wanted to make sure in this game was just to not get caught off guard by Ditto copying my Zacian and then, you know, just getting these +2 Behemoth Blades off. So that's why, like, you know, it actually is very important to think about, okay, what Pokemon am I switching in this turn and what is it going to do for me? And also, what Pokemon is my opponent going to switch in? So... Yep, there's Zacian in the back, but now I've got a defense boost, I've got Reflect up, and I still have another turn of Dynamax on Groudon, so your Behemoth Blade is not going to KO either here unless you crit. But if you're my opponent, you do have a win con, which is double critical hit. So you crit Groudon this turn for KO, and then you win, like, I said speed tide, but it's not necessarily speed tide. They're probably faster, because the Zacian on the team that we're using here doesn't really have too much speed investment. No, I shouldn't say it doesn't have too much. It has a decent amount, but I normally expect to get outsped by opposing Zacians, and I always assume opposing Zacians are max speed until I see otherwise. So, yeah. Both of the teams we went up against today, though, I think are really staple, like, strong teams that I've, you know, seen and run against before in the format. So, once again, glad to show how strong the Sun team that we're using at the moment can be, because this team at the moment has a pretty favorable matchup, at least neutral, into everything that, you know, is popular in the format. So it's a testament to why it's won 2 regional championships already, and so let's look for one last game. All right, last one here, and it is not actually a mirror match. They have Regieleki over Gastrodon, which is an interesting adjustment because it makes the opposing team really weak into Kyogre, I think. Although I guess Eleki is not terrible into Kyogre, but... Okay, I mean, yesterday when we played against the Mirrors, I kind of went with Charizard and Groudon, and Zacian in the late game. Or sorry, Charizard Instant, right? I mean, I'm down for Charizard Instant here again. I keep leading it, but it works. I guess the problem here is that they lead Eleki. Lucky is kind of scary, but if they lead a Lucky, I can just fake out the partner next to it and then pivot out into Groudon. So, I think Instant is just so valuable here because of Shuka Berry, meaning I can take an attack from Groudon, parting shot it, and, you know, so bring it down to -1, and then bring Instant back in to bring it down to -2. So, yeah. Today's episode, we've really just run the gauntlet in terms of kind of standard comps that are strong at the moment. First one was Kyogre plus Zacian, this one Groudon Zacian, and then I think Dialga is still a very underexplored Pokemon in the format. Like, I expect that to kind of rise up as more high-level players try to build around it, but it takes a lot more effort, I think, to build a good team around Dialga than it does around something like Kyogre or Groudon, because Dialga is just, unfortunately, very, very weak outside of Dynamax. Grimm plus Groudon. Okay, wow, this is a really favorable lead, I would argue. Because I get an Intimidate off to begin the game, right? So that's already really strong. Turn 1, I'm honestly thinking just fake out into Grimm and Wildfire it right now. Like, I've got an Intimidate and I've got the Charty Berry on Charizard, so, you know, if you Dynamax Groudon, that's fine by me. I guess my only consideration would be to click Airstream here with Charizard rather than Wildfire, but I'm not confident that actually KOs Grimmsnarl here, and right now, you don't have a safe switch into Wildfire other than, I guess, Incineroar. It actually would make sense for Instant to be in the back, right? But if you're bringing Instant in the back, then you're really not getting too much off. So I'm down to just fake out in Wildfire, turn 1 onto Grimm. Ideally, we just snipe off Grimm, right? But I think a switch here into Instant from there. And if they have it, makes sense. If they do not bring it, though, then you really have no switch in turn 1. I guess you have Charizard, but I wouldn't even call that a switch in, to be honest. It takes so much damage from Wildfire, and then you take Solar Power damage afterwards as well if Groudon didn't Rockfall that turn. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy about the lead here. And once again, this is where the Charty Berry on Charizard just makes all the difference, but they are going to withdraw Grimmsnarl, okay. And they brought Instant. Okay, nicely done. Still fine with this outcome, like, strong Wildfire to begin with. Grimm, you know, being forced out means that it's not really going to have too much value until maybe the late game at best. So, another play I could have made here was to just go for something like Airstream into Grimmslot and even Parting Shot, but I, you know, can't say with 100% confidence that they brought Instant in the back. It naturally is the best option, but sometimes, you know, your opponents don't necessarily call team preview correctly, and they don't bring the best tools at their disposal. So, yeah, like, I'm still fine with this trade-off. Next turn will be interesting, but I can just Max Guard Charizard. Now we've got Wildfire ticking down, which is good. Max Guard Charizard and then switch out into Groudon is a potential play I could make. Could just attack with Charizard as well. There's also no guarantee they went for Rockfall here. If they quaked into the Instant slot, then I can just hard switch Instant and just Wildfire or Rockfall their Instant next turn. Okay. There's Fake Out plus Wildfire. Yeah. This is what I mean. Like, nothing's really a switching into Wildfire in Sun. And they Quake. Cool. Okay. So given that, that's awesome. It does give them a special defense boost, which, you know, I would say is not necessarily ideal, but that's okay. This next turn now, I can go for Max Airstream onto their Charizard, or sorry, onto their Instant. Getting a speed boost here is actually such a big deal because it really helps me out against the Zacian in this end game. Okay. And Groudon's going to take some Wildfire each turn, which is great. I guess the only fear is Instant surviving an Airstream here. I wouldn't count on it. The other interesting question here is, do I want to switch out my Incineroar? Because they could Fake Out plus Max Quake the Instant slot. Like, I could easily switch out into my Groudon right now, but honestly, here... do I want to switch? Like, I would be taking some damage with Groudon here in the back, but I do think a switch is pretty good right now, because, like, their restricteds are physical attackers, so... Okay, I'll make the switch and Airstream into Instant. I think that's pretty safe. I could have also gone for a Rockfall there onto Instant, but I'd rather Airstream in this position, I think. Okay, they didn't go for Fake Out, so Parting Shot there actually would have worked. But we get the KO anyway. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I just don't love the idea of taking a Fake Out plus a Max Quake in that position and then losing Instant for nothing, right? Like, I have... And they go for Quake again. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, this isn't really doing too much at -1 attack. Beautiful. We just have so much bulk to work with right now. And then eliminating Instant is such a big deal because that's one of your fire types, meaning now everything else is taking Wildfire damage, right? And Wildfire is so nice into something like bulky AB Groudon because they just don't have a way to heal up. And so every little bit of chip matters. And then you just ideally put it in range where you can just KO it, right? So Grim comes back out. That's fine. Because I've got the Chardy Berry, I don't really care even if you Thunder Wave me right now. Honestly, here, I'm down to just Precipice Blades and Wildfire onto Grim. The reason I'm targeting Grim here is because Zacian should be their final Pokemon. Okay, so it's Trick. Are you Iron Ball? Lagging Tail? That actually might mean Groudon outspeeds me now, so kind of annoying. Never mind, we're still faster after the speed boost. This is one of the downsides of Iron Ball, like speed control, you know, it does allow you to kind of get around it. That was a nice play, but if they were... Actually, I mean, nothing would have worked for them here, right? Because even if you're a lagging tail, like I'd still outspeed you for that turn. So, I mean, this plays out perfectly, right? It's like, I lose Charizard, but Charizard has accomplished so much in this game. Now I can just bring in Incineroar, Intimidate, and Fake Out Pressure onto both. And I haven't even talked about Zacian yet in this end game. So, you know, in mirror matches like this, like, just having the Chardy on Charizard once again just gives me so much more confidence in playing it. And, yeah, like, the lead worked out really nicely for us. Because my opponent, in the end, Dynamaxed a Pokemon that was already at -1 attack to start off the game, right? Which normally isn't a great sign. So, yep, there's Zacian. Perfect. And this is why Incineroar is so important in this matchup rather than Grimmsnarl, because being able to cycle out and in for Intimidate and Fake Out is so valuable here. Okay. So now I can just Fake Out into Precipice Blades. That's really safe. There's still one more turn of Wildfire, which is also pretty sweet. And I still have a Zacian in the back as well. Okay. I'm down to just Precipice Blades here. Fake Out into... Zacian protecting here is fairly obvious. And I don't faint to a Behemoth Blade either unless you crit me. I'm just trying to play around a crit and a miss, basically. But the thing is, I don't think Groudon here is ever really going to have Protect, so I'm just going to Fake Out Groudon. Because they should be Assault Vested. The only downside to this play is that if they decide to not Protect Zacian and crit me, it's really bad. But yeah, they go for the Protect. So the thing is, by making this play, I was like, one, it covers for you having Protect on Zacian and going for it. And most Zacians have Protect, right? And this option also covers for me missing Precipice Blades against their Groudon as well. But by them choosing to click Protect there, that should just automatically win us the game. So we get a crit there, but yeah, I don't really think that mattered with Wildfire still ticking as well. Unless it actually was Citrus Groudon this whole time, then maybe it was a little bit more relevant. But even then, like, we're just set up for so much success in this end game. So now we don't even need to risk missing. We're just going to go for Fire Punch and... I was going to go for Parting Shot, but if, like, Instin's getting an attack off, might as well just Flare Blitz, because that'll just KO. So, yeah, they end up forfeiting. So, cool. I mean, the episodes that we had with this team, we mainly went up against really standard teams, but, like, this team is just really good, right? I really tried to not over-exaggerate when I call teams, like, one of the best in the format, and for this one, I called it, like, the best team in the format at the moment, and I just think, like, it is true, right, in terms of results. It's won 2 regional championships in Salt Lake City and in Liverpool back-to-back. It just gives players so many tools to operate with, and this new variant with Charty Berry and Ancient Power specifically really gives you such a leg up as well, and so... yeah, you know, Life Orb's a really strong item on Charizard, but I think this game specifically... it's funny, because we actually never even got hit by Rockfall until they stole my item away. But, yeah, like, knowing that I have Charty Berry, knowing I had that initial Intimidate meant that I could confidently max Charizard in front of a Groudon and not have to worry very much at all. And, you know, that's not very common, like, you're able to do that. So, once again, just one small item choice, one small move choice, you know, the combination of Ancient Power and Charty on this Charizard really optimizes it so that you have a good time against opposing Sun teams. And I think now this is going to progress, like, the Sun metagame a lot, right? Where opposing Sun teams now will probably also consider running Charty to deal with the Ancient Power, or maybe also running Ancient Power and Charty. And then in true mirror matches, things get even more dicey. But either way, yeah, this is the team to beat right now. So looking forward to see how people, you know, team build to counter this in the subsequent weeks. But thank you so much, as always, for watching. Thank you to Chongjun once again for the team, and congrats to him for winning Salt Lake Regionals. Check out the team in the description below. Leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.